Today, I am excited to be able to talk to a young technologist to understand and explore both the potential that technology can play, but also some of the unintended consequences in terms of delivering more purpose for society. I have Victor Yin, who is a graduate of Stanford University from computer science and history. Victor, thank you so much for joining. I'm very excited to talk to you again and to really explore this intersectionality between technology and global purpose.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to touch on some of these topics today as well.
You've just completed your time at Stanford in computing science and I think history, which is a very interesting I want to come and talk about. But can you tell me about your fascination with technology? When did it start and what inspires you most about it?
So I think I'm a bit of an oddball when it comes to technology. As I grew up sort of in Hong Kong, which is a city that doesn't really focus a lot on technology. When I was working with a hospital, and I was volunteering there, I actually helped them design a sort of paper pushing so-called algorithm where we were looking for ways when people miss their appointments, was it okay? And was there a way where they didn't have to wait in line for the next couple of hours before they can sort of see a doctor in the case that was urgent? And so from there, I started looking into algorithms and I started looking into ways of optimizing. And that actually got me into the field of technology, especially computer science. And long and behold, I'm in the Bay Area, sort of the center of it all. But I think coming from that perspective, it made me realize that when it comes to things like technology, when it comes to applications of computer science, you have to be quite realistic in terms of how you use it. And I think this segues really well into a focus that I've been looking at in the past year, which is blockchain. There's so much application to this technology, but in terms of how we're using it and in terms of the ways we're using it, I think, as everybody would have seen in the media, there definitely could be a sort of a reality check towards it. And I think that would take us in a better direction.
You've also got a history major with computing science. So what does history teach us about technology?
I'm actually a huge fan of the Computer Science History Museum in the Bay Area. I frequented a couple of times during my 5 years at Stanford. And I found that just to see the way that technology has evolved, looking at history classes, different cultures, and understanding different countries and the ways sort of humanity has evolved over time, I think just running that in parallel, you start thinking where technology will head as we move forward from here. And I think culture is going to play a big part. Geopolitics, obviously, as we've seen in the news, does play a huge part in terms of how technology is being shaped right now. In some ways, it's sad to see when you think that things like globalization and things like technology are supposed to bring us together. In some senses, it could be splitting us apart, right? So I think to study history as a computer scientist, everybody asks you why are you doing it? History doesn't pay at all. Or are you trying to boost your grades? But I think actually it's the opposite, where I think it adds so much to the way you look at technology and the way you think about how you can sort of use what you build to move everyone forward, more so that now you can actually think about which direction you want to take things with your technology, and it adds a purpose to it that I think you can really reflect on when you study something like history.
So can you just give us some thoughts about, how you see some of those issues around unintended consequences playing out in society as some of these new technologies like blockchain that you talked about really disrupt us over the coming years?
I don't think anybody would have thought that a few years down the line, that one of the biggest applications would revolve around, NFTs. Is this an unintended consequence of such great technology being pushed out there into sort of the wild, wild west, and letting the world explore where we can take this and how far we can go in various directions? I think yes, and I think this is at least in my very short lifetime, a sort of a huge wake up call for me in terms of what technology can do and what the consequences are if you just let it run free. And I think we've seen it in the news and especially covered somewhat negatively over the past couple months in the media, sort of what this technology can do. And now it's a great time to sit down and look at it properly and reflect upon it and see if is this really something that has substance and it's something we can work with, or have we taken it to a point where there's, in terms of its reputation that we
Yeah.
can't come back from that.
Let's stick on NFTs because
Great.
they have been very topical over the last 12
Yeah.
months. What are the important aspects of these emerging technologies for leaders in the not-for-profit sector?
Touching on a very small project that I'm working on in very early experimental stages, and I think is another sort of cherry on top in terms of how far we can go with this. It's related to wine. That's where some of the funding is. But what we're doing is when you're moving wine around, actually there's a lot of storage costs and there's a lot of logistics behind it. And if you sort of store it in one centralized location, be it maybe like a winery, you can do a lot of the sort of trading through smart contracts, and all the bookkeeping is there of how it soars, where it soars, where and what and how, who, and all these details that can be kept in the sort of like a ledger on the blockchain, and it's immutable. It updates instantaneously, and last of all, it's decentralized. So there's nobody that controls sort of how this data is stored and accessed. And then you sort of save the sort of logistics of moving it around until the final stage. This isn't like a breakthrough technology or anything, but I think it was a very cool way and first step towards optimizing some sort of supply chain, but at the same time making everything much more transparent, having everything recorded, and using the bookkeeping capabilities of the blockchain to a degree where we're applying it to real life. And I think that itself is something that is one step towards the right direction of sustainability and transparency in the supply chain and how you source where things are coming from.
You've talked about your journey from a hospital and using technology to provide a better patient experience. You've spent a number of years at Stanford. One of the reasons I came for Stanford was because of they are working to ensure that ethics is part of what computer science graduates come out of Stanford are. And so I'm just keen to hear from you, having been through that whole experience. How do you see that next generation of computer science coders, programmers that are coming out, thinking about that ethics, addressing some of the unintended consequences? And what hope does that give you that we're going to not use technology to divide us, as you talked about, but to bring us more together?
Well, yeah, one thing I never realized until I came to Stanford, I met so many people that are so smart and way smarter than me, was that they had the power to build crazy applications, and be it web apps or mobile apps, and integrating AI or optimizing on a very low level with their sort of CS degrees. They were building these out of their bedrooms. The people around you, they sort of come to their senses in terms of, are we doing it for the right purpose? And I think blockchain was a real test. I know there were lots of people who were caught in it. I started off as a sort of collector, and there were multiple opportunities to be involved in various projects along the way that could have taken a turn for the worse. I'm really thankful that the school and sort of mentors around me and the people in the computer science department, we all had the sort of, I wouldn't say clarity, but at least the sort of will to stay away from some of these projects, which financially they were very attractive, but in the long run, you would ask yourself what the sort of point of it was. And so we stuck to doing projects that involved the blockchain that were with various corporations that we believed in. I think that was a correct decision to make.
Let's
Mhm.
build on that, Victor, because I'm very excited about the number of young people that are coming out of tech schools and coders who are saying that what you're doing. I understand I'm going to play an important role in the world in these new technologies, and I have a very purpose lens about what I'm applying to it. And I think that that is something that it's clear for the tech leaders who are now at the head of the CEO or the president of a large sort of tech company. They're grappling with some of those dilemmas at the moment. And there's a demand from society that they apply that moral lens to where they're taking their companies. So as hopefully a future CEO president of a tech company, what's your advice to them around the purpose part of how you need to build out your business into the future?
I've been very lucky in my journey, starting off young, to have great mentors around me to sort of guide me in this journey, and talk me through ways of building things that are more meaningful. But at this point, I think even I learned so much from kids that are in their 13, 14, 15, especially through this blockchain wave. A lot of the people I talk really closely with are actually 17 or 18, and they haven't even gone to college yet. And I think for the first time in our lives, right, the barrier of entry to sort of building a big or great application is so low when it comes to software. But there is a reason why there's a business school, and there is a reason why I think the school itself emphasizes so much in terms of teaching you outside of just the code itself.
Yeah.
I think this is something that I think tech leaders would most definitely and should definitely start pushing at a much earlier age, because I think kids are building applications at a much younger age too. So I think it's only natural that sort of sharing your tech journey and the lessons you've learned and how it's pointed you in a direction that it's pointed you in today. Um, you have to start telling that story to a younger audience as soon as possible, because before you know it, 13, 14-year-olds might be building on Facebook and Google and Amazon. And I think that at least from the young kids I've been interacting with, it's a very likely scenario.
I think from a not-for-profit sector, how do therefore not-for-profit leaders learn from a group of teenagers or early 20s around the technology that's going to disrupt their purpose sector as well? I think that's a really interesting conversation that we need to have, because the insights are coming from a generation that traditionally not-for-profits find it hard to talk to about the overall purpose of why they're there to start with.
The first time I was actually involved in a nonprofit space was I was a film student, and we started making commercials for nonprofits and sort of introduction videos. As students, we weren't the best cinematographers and so on and so forth. We didn't create the best videos, but it was actually amazing that nonprofits would take a chance on us and give us the opportunity to create that video for them. And so not only did we learn a lot about what they were doing, at the same time, it was kind of it was a very sweet sort of partnership where I think they were very happy to show the sort of final product that we would create for them too, in terms of sort of it being a reflection of our understanding of what they did. And I think this is the same for, tech as well. Again, with the barrier of entry sort of being much lower now in terms of how you can create technology from your bedroom and off of YouTube videos and tutorials. I think it's time that maybe nonprofits can start thinking about, can we get younger kids involved in this sort of process, just like they did when they gave us the opportunity to help them create commercials and introduction videos. Can we give them the sort of chance to build an application for us with their newest idea of a sustainability blockchain, things like that, right? And this year I'm very thankful to the sort of corporate partners that I had who gave us the chance to work with them as a bunch of 20-year-olds to work very closely with them to develop stuff on the blockchain. And it's taught me so much. And I think that hopefully for them too, it's opened up their sort of eyes on how to get a younger generation involved in the work that they do.
That's a really great idea and a great example, Victor. So thank you for that. Well, look, I am, as I've written in my blog as I came out of Stanford, I think we're living through the fourth industrial revolution, and that we need not to design that as an industrial revolution. We need to think of it as a much more regenerative revolution that is going to connect that purpose that you talked around. And I'm inspired of that younger generation, as you say, in their early teens, some of them, but right through the 20s, who are actively playing a role in shaping out what their future is. And so I think having purpose at the heart of what that generation really want to achieve, which is what you're telling me you want to do, I think is a very inspiring message for the rest of the world. So I wanted to thank you for joining me. It's been a really fascinating conversation. I'm going to track your career with enormous progress, Victor. We'll keep in touch. I want to hear about the next innovations in technology and where it can take us to deliver purpose to, as you say, not make us take us apart, but in the end, bring us together as society. I think that's a great way to finish. So thank you very much, Victor.
Thank you for having me.
My hope is that this series has helped to connect you to innovative thinkers around the world at a time that we were physically disconnected. As we unite society around some of the big challenges that we're facing, I'm struck by the words both from Kanu and Lynn, and most recently Victor, around the need to use these disruptions not to drive us apart, but to bring us together as society. So I look forward to continuing the dialogue with all of you and to be able to work together, to be able to, in a very disruptive period in our world's history, drive greater purpose to deliver for communities and deliver for the planet. Thank you so much.